Okay, welcome in to This Week in Penn State Football. Bob Flounders, Greg Pickel. We're going to talk about Penn State and Minnesota, 8-0 versus 8-0, and what maybe Penn State fans can expect from the Golden Gophers.
Yeah, this is an exciting week, isn't it, Bob? I mean, we get to this point of the season, November. I think I would have had Penn State, I think, at either 6-2 or 7-1 this week, depending on which outlet I gave my prediction to, compared to what I posted here at Penn Live.
Flip-flopper.
So I am a flip-flopper, but that's okay. I'll take it. I'll take whatever ends up being the better record at the end of the year. But at any rate, good start to the season, obviously, for both of these teams. James Franklin saying Tuesday night during the bye week that he seems to have a pretty good familiarity with PJ Fleck. He said that Fleck came and visited Franklin's Vanderbilt program back when Fleck was still, I believe, at Western Michigan. So he knows a little bit about the way James and his staff operate. James has said that Matt Limegrover, the former Minnesota coach, is not there's been too much change there for him to have much of an impact on what Minnesota is going to do game planning wise. Of course, he was there before being hired by Penn State. So to me, Bob, this game comes down to Penn State going on the road and starting fast again and finding a way to obviously limit Minnesota's receivers and take advantage of what they can in the passing game. We've seen some teams keep games close with Minnesota that maybe you wouldn't expect so far this season, but to their credit, they found a way to win just like Penn State has.
Yeah, they opened up with a narrow win at home against an FCS school, South Dakota State.
Which may be their best win of the season.
And then they went to overtime at Fresno State, and so people were thinking, well, this team is the same old Minnesota. Got some patsies early, but they got momentum as the season went on. They thumped Nebraska. They haven't really played a lot of great Big Ten teams, but they have won impressively. They also finished last year, I think, very well. They beat Wisconsin late last year. They won their bowl game against Georgia Tech. Before we can talk a little bit more, I think, about specifics of Minnesota, in the coming days. But let's just talk about some early storylines. Penn State's going to be shorthanded as one. The 11 a.m. start is another. And just to kick it off, is it me or do you see some similarities between PJ Fleck and James Franklin?
Yeah, I mean they have very similar approaches in terms of positive energy, in terms of surrounding themselves with really good coordinators and coaches that can sort of handle their side of the ball. PJ Fleck is a tremendous recruiter, just like James Franklin is. I mean, they have a lot. It's not surprising to me to hear James say that Fleck was, Fleck sought him out to visit Franklin and the Vanderbilt program because I think they have a lot of the same philosophical ideas. I think they approach the game and coaching it and mentoring college student athletes in a similar way. So, I think that they have a lot in common, which makes this fascinating because they'll probably be thinking a lot alike on game day. But in terms of the shorthandedness, Franklin's sort of veered from his usual path. He was asked Tuesday. Number one, he said more after the game about injuries than we ever hear him say. Yeah, he said that, he didn't think they'd be long-term. He's asked about it on Tuesday, says something to the effect of basically what I told you guys in East Lansing is what the expectations are now. So we'll see. He could also be playing the reverse mind game and letting Minnesota think those guys are going to be active and that maybe they won't be. I don't know. We're not going to know anything more than we do now until it's clear at this point that they're not season-ending injuries, which is all he talks about. So we're not going to know anything more until we get to Minneapolis Saturday morning and get a lay of the land for who's warming up and who's not. But I think that Penn State, I'll be interested to see what your matchup predictions are next week because I think Penn State has some areas where they have the advantage, but this might be a bit of an underrated Minnesota offense that has some very good receivers.
When you talk about the spread, in your mind, what do you think it will open at? I think there's been some lines somewhere. I thought after Penn State won at Michigan State, it would be right around a touchdown, and it might be there at kickoff. But now that Penn State does they lose Shelton. Antonio Shelton suspended, the nose tackle. He won't play. And they could be without John Reed. They could be without Noah Cain. Split it down the middle. Say No Shelton, but Kane and Reed are available. In your mind, what does this line look like to you?
So the initial reaction when we saw that FanDuel had posted 4.5 for Penn State a 4.5 point favorite was that the initial reaction from a lot of people on social media was, how can I deposit money into FanDuel to bet that? Because I think there's a lot of Penn State fans who thought that this game would be a touchdown at least. So to get that low of a number seems like a good bet. Whenever the odds makers put a number lower than you expect and everybody wants to bet it, that usually tells me to go the other way. I haven't decided what the pick will be for that game yet, but it's lower. It almost has that slam dunk feeling to it that you don't really love if you're trying to back the favorite. So we'll see. I mean, at 4.5, 5 sounds right. I can honestly see money pushing it up to close to a touchdown. If it gets to 7, I don't think that number will last long. I just think there's too many people that don't want to buy Minnesota at 7. But Penn State's done nothing yet this year to suggest it can't win this game by a touchdown or more. But you're right, the uncertainty of some members of the roster and the certainty of having no Antonio Shelton and putting extra stress on that defensive line is definitely going to be something to monitor as we get closer to kickoff.
Okay, Greg, let's wrap this up as we talk about Penn State on the bye week with Minnesota here. 11 a.m. start. I'm just going to ask you very directly. Is this going to influence your Friday night plans in Minneapolis?
Oh, yeah.
You haven't really had a chance to go there. It's kind of a fun town. You're probably, because the way that Joe Hermit travels, we're probably going to have to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning to go to this game because he's an early bird. Is this going to limit what you want to do on Friday night?
No, I might a little bit, but I think we'll play that by ear. I will say that there's public transportation seems to be very good in Minnesota, so there's a couple different ways to get to the stadium, which maybe investigate it. But, yeah, I think it seems like, from what I've been able to gather so far, Bob, it seems like there's going to be a lot of Penn State fans who will be partying Friday night in Minnesota.
It is a great city. It is fantastic.
James Franklin talked a few weeks ago about wanting, I think this was after the Iowa game, wanting Penn State to get to a point where they take over more and more road stadiums. I don't know if that will be the case this week, but I feel like if you're a Penn State fan, and let us know if you're out there by liking, rating, and subscribing to the Penn State Blitz podcast.
Smooth.
Yeah, very smooth. Yeah, you can tell us on YouTube in the comments too, youtube.com/allpennstate. It seems like if you were going to circle a game to go to, this would be the one, because Penn State doesn't make it to Minneapolis much. It has good reviews as a place to travel to. So, yeah, I think Penn State should be well represented. We will be well represented at dinner Friday night, and then well represented in the stadium Saturday morning, TCF Bank Stadium. Maybe snowing, maybe not. You never know.
I mean, I'll give you 1A on the list, but I'm pretty sure Ohio State's a little bit higher on the Penn State fan bases.
True. Well, if you're going to go to 2 games, or if you didn't want to spend $500 for tickets at Ohio State, it seems like a good plan B if you didn't want to go to Columbus.
All right, that's it for this edition of This Week in Penn State Football, and we will have much more on this clash of unbeatens next week.